millionaire boss pretended to be asleep just to see what his cleaner would do. Michael Thompson breathed deeply in the leather armchair of his office, pretending to sleep while observing every movement through his half-closed eyelids. Disturbing rumors about his trusted employee had reached his ears, and he needed to uncover the truth before it was too late. When Dorothy Jenkins entered the office in her spotless blue uniform and the yellow gloves she had worn for 5 years, she hesitated upon seeing him seemingly asleep. The safe on the wall was open, something that never happened, and stacks of money were clearly visible. Her heart raced as she approached slowly, her hands trembling slightly. Here was the solution to all her problems. The 42-year-old woman had worked at that construction company in downtown New York City without a single absence in 5 years. But now she faced eviction from her small apartment in Park Slope, and her 16-year-old daughter Emily urgently needed surgery on her right knee after an accident at school. The cost of the procedure was exorbitant for her means, and her basic health insurance didn't cover it. Michael remained still, controlling his breath as he watched her. At 35, he had built an empire from scratch, but his partner's recent betrayal had left him distrustful of everyone around him. His sister Victoria had planted seeds of doubt about Dorothy, hinting that a cleaner couldn't possibly be as honest as she seemed. Dorothy touched one of the bills, quickly counted a few, and for a moment, her eyes filled with tears. It was more money than she earned in 6 months. But then her gaze fell on a photo of Michael's family inside the safe. There was something about the happiness in their expressions that made her step back. She carefully arranged the bills as they were, closed the safe and continued cleaning, leaving only a small note on the desk, warning about the safe being left open. Michael was genuinely surprised. He had expected her to take at least a few bills, reasoning that no one would notice. Her unexpected gesture intrigued him but also deepened his suspicion. Perhaps she was smarter than he thought, avoiding theft at the first opportunity to gain his trust before pulling off a bigger scheme. The next day, he decided to escalate the test. He deliberately scattered expensive jewelry across his glass desk, including a diamond ring that had belonged to his grandmother and a prestige watch worth more than Dorothy's annual salary. Then he pretended to fall asleep in the armchair again, watching her every move. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, back to the story. Dorothy arrived as always, punctually at 2 in the afternoon. Seeing the jewelry scattered about, she stopped abruptly. Her first instinct was to call out to him, but seeing him fast asleep, she decided to carefully gather each piece. One by one, she placed them in a small velvet box she found in the drawer, leaving another note explaining the importance of keeping valuables in a safe place. Michael watched with growing curiosity. Her persistence in doing the right thing, even while facing obvious financial struggles, began to shake his convictions. He decided to dig deeper into her life. He discreetly hired a private investigator who discovered that Dorothy sold homemade treats after work to supplement her income, often staying up late baking cakes and snacks for children's parties. The report revealed details that moved him. Dorothy would wake up at 4 in the morning to prepare sweets, worked at the company from 2 to 6 in the afternoon, and then went to a bakery where she cleaned until 10 at night. On weekends, she did house cleaning in private homes, all to pay for her daughter's treatment and keep the household running since her husband had abandoned them 2 years earlier. One afternoon, as Michael reviewed contracts in his office, the door unexpectedly opened. It was a visibly limping teenager carrying a thermal lunchbox. "Sorry to bother you, sir," the girl said shyly. "I'm Emily, Mrs. Dorothy's daughter. She forgot her lunch at home, so I brought it." Michael studied the girl carefully. She had the same gentle smile as her mother, but there was pain in her eyes. Not just physical, but emotional. The way she leaned all her weight on her left leg made the problem with her right knee obvious. "Your mother is cleaning in the meeting room," he said, trying to sound casual. "How did you get here?" "By bus, sir. It took almost 2 hours, but I knew she wouldn't eat if I didn't bring it." The conversation was interrupted by Dorothy's arrival, who looked visibly embarrassed to see her daughter there. "Emily, what are you doing here? I told you not to worry about lunch." "Mom, you've skipped lunch 3 times this week, and the doctor said you need to eat properly so you don't get sick." Michael pretended to focus on his papers, but watched every detail of their interaction. The mutual concern between mother and daughter was palpable, as was the love evident in every gesture. After they left, he quietly spoke with the receptionist, Mrs. Gladys, a 65-year-old woman who had worked there for a decade and knew every employee's story. "That girl is an angel, Mr. Michael," Gladys said, adjusting her glasses. "She comes here sometimes to bring things for her mother, always polite, always worried. Dorothy works like a dog to pay for her treatment. It's heartbreaking." "What exactly is the girl's problem?" "An injury to her right knee. It happened during a volleyball game at school. The doctor said without surgery she could have permanent damage, but private care costs a fortune, and with Medicaid, the waiting list is over a year." That night, Michael couldn't sleep. The images of the limping girl and her mother's worry mixed with memories of his own humble childhood. He remembered when his mother, Mrs. Eleanor, worked as a seamstress to support the family after his father left. Dorothy's determination and dignity reminded him so much of his own mother. The next day he decided to expand his tests, but now with a different purpose. It was no longer just about checking her honesty, but truly understanding what kind of person she was. He began leaving important business documents exposed, valuable contracts and confidential information that could be sold to competitors. Dorothy simply organized them into the right folders, sometimes correcting small mistakes with discreet sticky notes. "Attention, wrong date in paragraph 3, she wrote in her neat handwriting. Michael was impressed not just by her honesty, but by her attention to detail and organizational skills. Weeks passed, and Michael began eagerly anticipating Dorothy's little notes. They revealed a practical intelligence that amazed him. She spotted inconsistencies in reports, suggested better filing systems, and even caught a calculation error that could have cost the company thousands. Then the first serious complication arose. Amanda, an employee from the administrative department and Victoria's niece, started spreading malicious rumors about Dorothy. During the afternoon coffee break, she whispered to other employees that she had seen the cleaning lady rummaging through drawers and taking office supplies. "I didn't want to believe it," said Amanda with feigned concern, "but yesterday I saw her putting paper and pens in her bag. And there's more. She spends way too much time in Mr. Thompson's office. It's not normal." The rumors spread quickly through the office. Michael caught fragments of the conversations and decided to investigate. He pretended to believe the accusations and confronted Dorothy directly, watching her reaction carefully. "Dorothy, some employees have reported irregularities in your behavior. I need you to open your bag and show me what's inside." Her face paled, but she kept her dignity. "Of course, Mr. Thompson. I have nothing to hide." She opened her worn synthetic leather bag and took out each item. A tattered wallet, back pain medication, a little notebook where she jotted down dessert recipes, and some yellowed receipts. "These are receipts for everything I buy for personal use," she explained, handing over the papers. "I always keep them just in case. If anything's missing, I can prove it wasn't me." Michael examined the receipts. They were all for basic necessities: bread, milk, medicine. Not a single item could have come from the office. He felt ashamed for doubting her, but didn't reveal his true feelings yet. "All right, Dorothy, you may return to your work." But the situation worsened when Amanda planted false evidence. She deliberately placed office supplies in the cleaning closet, where Dorothy kept her supplies, then discovered everything, calling other employees as witnesses. "Look what I found," Amanda shouted dramatically. "Reams of paper, dozens of pens, staplers, all hidden here." Dorothy arrived just as the discovery was made and stood in shock. "I've never seen these things here. Someone put them there." "Of course you deny it," Amanda shot back. "But the evidence speaks for itself. Mr. Thompson, I think it's time to take action." Michael watched the scene with heightened attention. There was something staged about Amanda's behavior, a theatricality that didn't match a genuine discovery. But he decided to play along and fired Dorothy in front of everyone, carefully observing each reaction. "Dorothy Jenkins, under suspicion of theft, you're fired. Collect your things and never come back here." Tears streamed down her face, but her response surprised him. "Mr. Thompson, I would never steal anything from you or this company. I don't know who did this, but it wasn't me." I'll leave because you're ordering me to, but know that my conscience is clear." She gathered her personal belongings with dignity, thanked Mrs. Gladys for her friendship over the years, and walked out with her head held high. Michael watched from his office window as she waited for the bus in the rain that had just begun to fall. That same night, he resolved to uncover the truth. He installed discreet security cameras and began investigating Amanda's behavior more closely. Within days, the footage revealed something shocking. She had been seen multiple times taking company supplies and leaving with bulky bags. Even more disturbing was the discovery that Amanda was part of a larger scheme. Her Aunt Victoria, Michael's sister, had orchestrated everything to undermine his trust in loyal employees, making it easier to bring in people connected to her. The ultimate goal was to influence his business decisions and eventually pressure changes to the family inheritance. Michael learned that Victoria was deep in debt due to bad investments and desperately needed access to the family money. The strategy was to erode his trust in honest people like Dorothy, replacing them with employees who would report directly to her. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, the revelation shook him to his core. Michael had always had a complicated relationship with Victoria, 5 years older and forever resentful that he'd inherited their father's company, but he never imagined she'd stoop this low. The family betrayal hurt more than any business blow he'd ever suffered. Meanwhile, Dorothy was facing the worst days of her life. Without her main job, she doubled down on selling sweets and took on extra cleaning gigs. But the money wasn't enough. The eviction became a reality, and she and Emily had to move into a rented room in a boarding house in Queens, sharing a bathroom with other families. Emily, seeing her mother's suffering, hid the worsening pain in her knee to avoid adding to her worries. She spent sleepless nights biting her pillow to muffle her groans, listening to her mother cry silently on the other side of the tiny room. "Mom, don't worry about me," Emily would say, forcing a smile over breakfast. "The pain is much better. I might not even need the surgery after all." Dorothy knew her daughter was lying to spare her, but what could she do? The Medicaid waiting list was endless, and the private doctor had been clear. The longer they waited, the higher the risk of permanent damage. Michael, for his part, couldn't focus on work. The image of Dorothy walking away in the rain haunted him, as did the memory of the dignity she'd shown facing those false accusations. He began discreetly looking into her situation, uncovering the forced move and the dire conditions they now lived in. It was Mrs. Gladys who gave him the most painful details. "Mr. Thompson, with all due respect, you've done a terrible injustice," she said with the frankness only a trusted employee could muster. "Dorothy is the most honest person I've ever known, and now they're struggling because of a lie." "How do you know it was a lie, Gladys?" "Because I've known Amanda since she was a child. She's always been crafty, making up stories to get out of trouble. And I saw when she planted those things in the cleaning closet. I thought it was just a silly prank, but by the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because no one asked me, sir, and because I thought you knew Dorothy's character well enough. 5 years here without a single complaint should have counted for something." Gladys's words echoed in Michael's mind for days. He now saw how the distrust Victoria had planted had clouded his judgment. Dorothy's honesty during all those secret tests should have been enough for him to trust her when the accusations arose. He decided to confront Victoria directly. He arranged lunch at an upscale restaurant on the Upper East Side, where they usually met monthly. She arrived promptly, as polished as ever, unaware he'd uncovered her scheme. "Michael, dear brother," she said, kissing his cheek. "How's business? I hope you've resolved that issue with the dishonest employee." "How interesting you'd bring that up, Victoria. Tell me, how did you know the details of what happened with Dorothy?" She hesitated for a split second, but quickly recovered. "Oh, news travels fast, doesn't it? Especially when it's about protecting the family's interests." "Family," Michael repeated the word slowly. "It's interesting how concerned you've been about family lately, especially given your recent financial troubles." Victoria's face paled, but she kept her composure. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about your failed stock investments, the loans you took out using company shares as collateral, and the scheme you set up to plant Amanda as a spy in my office." The mask had finally fallen. Victoria stared at him with a mix of anger and desperation. "You always had everything, Michael. Daddy always preferred you, left you the company, treated you like the perfect son. I needed a chance to share in the profits that should have been ours by right. And for that, you destroyed an innocent family's life. A cleaning lady. Michael, for heaven's sake, there are thousands like her. But there's only one Thompson Builders, one family legacy you're wasting with your naivety." The coldness in her voice when she spoke of Dorothy revealed a side of Victoria that Michael had never seen before. Or perhaps he simply hadn't wanted to see. The conversation ended in a heated argument, with Victoria storming out of the restaurant after threatening to expose family secrets if he didn't include her in the business. That afternoon, Michael made a decision that would change everything. He called his lawyer and instructed him to prepare documents removing Victoria from any stake in the family business. Then, he began planning how to make amends for the harm he'd caused Dorothy. But before he could act, another twist complicated things further. Amanda, realizing she'd been exposed, decided to go on the offensive. She sought out Dorothy at the boarding house where she lived and made a surprising offer. "Dorothy, I know you have every reason to hate me," Amanda said, feigning remorse, "but I can help you get revenge on my uncle Michael and make a lot of money in the process." "I don't understand what you're saying, Amanda. I have damaging documents about the company. Information worth millions to competitors. If you help me access more files, we can split whatever we get." Dorothy stared at her with disbelief and sadness. "Amanda, even after everything you've done to me, you still don't understand the kind of person I am. I would never do something like that, and I suggest you don't either. You're a fool, Dorothy. You're struggling, your daughter is suffering, and you still defend the man who humiliated you. I defend what's right, and stealing from anyone is never right." Amanda left in a rage, but her words echoed in Dorothy's mind. It was true Michael had publicly humiliated her, firing her based on false evidence. It was true she and Emily were going through terrible times because of it, but she couldn't bring herself to hate him. Something in all those years working for him told her he wasn't a bad person, just someone who'd been deceived. Meanwhile, Michael discovered through his investigations that Amanda had tried to recruit Dorothy into the industrial espionage scheme. It only confirmed his impression of his former employee's integrity. He decided it was time for one final test, not to verify her honesty, but to confirm what he already knew in his heart. One afternoon, he showed up at Dorothy's boarding house. The place was modest but clean, a far cry from the tidy apartment she'd lost. He climbed 3 flights of narrow stairs until he reached room 12. When Dorothy opened the door and saw him standing there, her face reflected surprise, embarrassment, and a flicker of hope she tried to hide. "Mr. Thompson, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you, Dorothy. May I come in?" She hesitated, glancing at the small room she shared with her daughter. There were only 2 simple beds, a small wardrobe, and a little table where she prepared her sweets in the early mornings. "Of course, come in. Sorry for the mess, but..." "There's no need to apologize for anything." Michael walked in and immediately noticed the signs of her daily struggle. There were bags of flour and sugar in one corner, stacked cake pans, and the sweet scent that betrayed her nighttime work. Emily was sitting on the bed doing her homework and tried to stand up to greet him, but the pain in her knee made her falter. "Hello, Emily, how are you?" "Fine, sir," the girl lied, forcing a smile. Michael turned to Dorothy with an envelope in his hands. "Dorothy, I found out the truth about what happened at the company. Amanda planted that evidence, and my sister was behind it all. I did you a terrible injustice." Dorothy's face lit up with a mix of relief and vindication. "I knew the truth would come out sooner or later, Mr. Thompson. This envelope contains the exact amount you need for Emily's surgery," he said, handing her the envelope. "It's my way of beginning to make up for the harm I caused you." Dorothy took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was more money than she had ever seen in her life. It was enough not just for the surgery, but to start over with dignity. Tears streamed down her face as she counted the bills. Emily, realizing what was happening, began to cry too. "Mom, is it true? Can I really have the surgery?" Dorothy hugged her daughter, feeling indescribable relief. But then, to Michael's surprise, she stood up and handed the envelope back to him. "Mr. Thompson, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, but I can't accept this as a gift." "Dorothy, you misunderstood. It's not a gift, it's restitution. It's the least I can do after what happened." "I understand your intention, sir, and it means the world to me. But I have my pride. If you want to help me, give me a loan. I'll pay it back by working, doing overtime, whatever it takes. But I can't accept charity." Michael was speechless. Even in such desperate circumstances, she held on to her dignity and principles. It was exactly what he expected, yet he was still amazed by her strength of character. "All right, Dorothy. It'll be a loan, but I have a better offer. Come back to work for me, not as a cleaner, but as an administrative assistant. Your notes over all these years showed you have exceptional organizational skills. Mr. Thompson, I don't have the education for a position like that." "You have something better than education, Dorothy. You have practical intelligence, honesty, and dedication. The rest I can teach you." It was then that he revealed the secret he'd kept for months. "Dorothy, I need to confess something. All this time I was testing you, pretending to sleep in the armchair, leaving money and jewelry out, important documents in plain sight. I was checking your honesty." She looked at him with an unreadable expression. "I know, Mr. Thompson." "What do you mean, you know?" "That first day when I walked in and you were in the armchair, your breathing wasn't like someone asleep. It was too controlled, too deliberate. And later, when valuable things started appearing around, I realized it was intentional. No one forgets a prestige watch on the table." Michael was stunned. "And even knowing it was a test, I did what my conscience told me. Test or not, I would never take what wasn't mine." The revelation completely changed Michael's perspective on everything that had happened. Dorothy hadn't just passed his tests, she had done so knowing she was being tested. It showed a level of integrity he had never encountered in his life. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Emily watched the entire conversation with her eyes shining with hope. Finally, her mother would be recognized for who she truly was, an extraordinary person who deserved every opportunity in the world. "Mom," she said softly, "accept his offer. You deserve so much more than cleaning offices. You're the smartest person I know." Dorothy looked at her daughter, then at Michael, and finally made the decision that would change their lives forever. "I accept your offer, Mr. Thompson, but with two conditions. I'll repay the loan by working, and you give me a real chance to learn and grow in the company." "I accept your conditions, and I have another surprise. The company will also cover Emily's education. She can go to college after finishing high school." Mother and daughter embraced, crying with emotion. Michael felt a satisfaction he hadn't experienced in a long time. For the first time in years, he felt he was doing something genuinely good, without hidden agendas or business calculations. In the following days, Michael took care of cleaning house. He fired Amanda without notice and cut all professional ties with Victoria. He also implemented new safety protocols in the company to prevent similar situations from happening in the future. Emily's surgery was scheduled for the following week. Michael insisted on paying for the best orthopedic surgeon in New York City and personally oversaw the entire process. On the day of the operation, he was as nervous as Dorothy, pacing back and forth in the hospital hallway. "Mr. Thompson," Dorothy said, trying to calm him, "you don't need to worry so much. We're not your family." "Maybe not by blood, Dorothy, but you've become very important to me. I hadn't realized how empty my life was until I met you." The surgery was a complete success. Emily woke up from anesthesia smiling, knowing she could finally walk normally again, play sports, and dream of a future without physical limitations. During her recovery, Michael visited the hospital daily. He and Emily developed a special friendship, talking about studies, future plans, and dreams. She revealed she wanted to study business to help her mother with work, and he was impressed by the girl's maturity and determination. "Michael," Dorothy said during one of these visits, "can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Why did you never marry? You're a good, successful man. Surely you've had opportunities. Michael smiled sadly. I guess I never found someone I could fully trust. I always had the feeling people were more interested in my money than in me, and after my partner's betrayal and now my sister's, it's hard to believe in people. But that's no way to live, Michael. You deserve to be happy, to have a family. What about you, Dorothy? Never thought of marrying again? After what I went through with Emily's father, I lost faith in men. He seemed so good at first, but when things got tough, he just disappeared. Since then, my priority has always been Emily. Their conversations grew deeper and more frequent. Michael discovered that Dorothy wasn't just honest and hardworking, but also intelligent, funny, and had a worldview that inspired him. She, in turn, realized that behind the successful businessman's facade was a lonely man starved for genuine affection. When Dorothy finally returned to work at the company, now as an administrative assistant, her transformation was remarkable. She quickly mastered the computer systems, organized files that had been a mess for years, and implemented process improvements that impressed the entire team. Mrs. Gladys was overjoyed to see the former cleaner treated with the respect she had always deserved. "Mr. Michael," she said one day, "you did the right thing. Dorothy was always special. She just needed an opportunity." "Gladys, can I confess something? I always knew she was special. The problem was, I didn't want to admit it to myself." "Why?" "Because admitting it would mean accepting that I was falling in love with her." Gladys smiled with the wisdom of someone who had lived a long life. "And what's wrong with that, Mr. Michael? The heart doesn't choose based on social class or profession. It chooses character." Gladys's words echoed in Michael's mind for days. He tried to deny his feelings, convincing himself that it would be inappropriate to get romantically involved with an employee. But the more time he spent with Dorothy, the harder it became to ignore what he felt. The turning point came one night when they worked late preparing an important proposal. Dorothy had proven herself an exceptional collaborator, spotting contract issues that could have cost the company dearly. "Dorothy," Michael said when they finished, "you saved the company from a mistake that could have cost millions. How can I thank you?" "You don't have to thank me, Michael. It's my job." "No, it's more than that. You always go beyond what's expected." They were alone in the office, the lights of the city stretching beyond the window, an intimacy in the air that neither could ignore. "Can I confess something?" Michael said, stepping closer. "Of course. I can't stop thinking about you, not just as an employee, but as a woman, as someone who's completely changed my life." Dorothy's heart raced. She had developed feelings for him too, but had tried to suppress them, believing it was improper. "Michael, I feel something special for you too, but it's complicated. You're my boss. There's a social difference between us." "Dorothy, look at me," he said, gently taking her hands. "Forget boss and employee, forget social differences. We're just two people who care about each other. That shouldn't be complicated." "But what if it goes wrong? What if people talk? What if—" Michael silenced her with a soft kiss. For a moment, all worries and fears disappeared. There were only the two of them, and the certainty that this was right, no matter what society said. When they pulled apart, Dorothy had tears in her eyes. "Michael, I'm scared. I've been hurt so much." "I know, and I'm scared too, but we can't let fear stop us from being happy, not after everything we've been through." They decided to take things slow, getting to know each other in every way. Michael began visiting the modest home Dorothy had rented after leaving the boarding house, helping Emily with her studies and joining in on family meals. It was a new experience for him. Used to formal dinners at expensive restaurants, he discovered the joy of home-cooked meals, made with love, and shared with people who truly cared about him. Emily accepted the relationship with natural ease and happiness. Michael became a father figure to her, guiding her studies and supporting her dreams. The girl had fully recovered from her surgery and returned to playing volleyball at school, now with even more determination. "Michael," she said one day, "thank you for taking care of my mum. She deserves to be happy. Emily, your mother has taken care of me far more than I have her. She taught me to trust people again. But not everything was easy. Victoria, furious at being cut out of the family business, launched a smear campaign against Michael and Dorothy. She spread malicious rumors through New York City society, insinuating that Michael had been fooled by a gold digger. The social pressure weighed most heavily on Dorothy, who wasn't used to such scrutiny. Some old friends criticized her for thinking too highly of herself, while strangers made nasty comments when she appeared at social events alongside Michael. One evening, after a particularly uncomfortable dinner where several people treated her coldly, Dorothy came home devastated. "Michael, maybe it's best we stop here," she said, crying. "I can't handle all this social pressure. It's not my world." "Dorothy, you can't give up on us because of petty people who don't know what real love is. But they're right about one thing. We're from different worlds. I don't know how to act in these elegant settings. I don't have the refined upbringing your friends have. And that's exactly why I love you," Michael interrupted. "You're genuine, real, with no masks or pretenses. These people who criticize us live in a world of empty appearances. I'm tired of that world, Dorothy. I want something real." Michael then made a decision that surprised everyone. In a meeting with key clients and business partners, he delivered a speech that became legendary in the company. "Gentlemen, I'd like to formally introduce Dorothy Jenkins, who will be promoted to administrative manager of the company. She doesn't have a college degree, but she has something more valuable: absolute integrity and practical competence. And I want everyone to know she's not just my employee, but the woman I intend to marry." The room fell silent for a few seconds before erupting in applause. Most employees already knew and respected Dorothy for the exceptional work she'd been doing. Mrs. Gladys was the first to stand and applaud, followed by the others. Dorothy, seated in the front row, cried with emotion as she watched the man she loved publicly defend their relationship. After the meeting, Michael took her to a special place, the office balcony where it all began. There, where she had left the first note about the open safe, he knelt with an engagement ring in his hands. "Dorothy Jenkins, would you marry me? Not for money, not for social status, but for pure and true love." "Michael Thompson," she replied, sobbing with emotion. "I accept, because you've taught me that true love conquers any prejudice." The wedding was set for 6 months later, enough time to organize everything and for Dorothy to finish the business course Michael had encouraged her to take. The ceremony was simple but moving, held in the neighborhood church where Dorothy grew up, attended by true friends and company employees who had become family. Victoria didn't attend, maintaining her opposition to the relationship. But Michael wasn't shaken. He had learned that true family isn't just about blood ties, but about love and mutual respect. Emily was her mother's maid of honor, radiant as she watched the woman she'd always admired finally receive the recognition and love she deserved. During her wedding speech, she spoke with impressive maturity for her 17 years. "My mother always taught me that honesty is the most precious thing we have. Today, I see she was right. Her honesty not only brought her here, but also taught Michael what true love is." The honeymoon was at a simple inn in Aspen, far from the spotlight and social pressure. There, walking through the mountains and talking about the future, they planned not just their married life, but also the social projects they wanted to develop together. "Michael," Dorothy said as they watched the sunset, "I have an idea. Tell me, what if we create a program at the company to give opportunities to people like me, people with potential who never got a chance? Honest, hard-working people who just need an opportunity." "Dorothy, you read my mind. I was already thinking about that. We can create scholarships, training programs, microloans for small entrepreneurs. And we can start with Mrs. Gladys. She always dreamed of having a flower shop but never had the money to invest." Michael smiled, once again impressed by his wife's generous heart. "Let's do it, and you know where to start. By offering microloans to people selling homemade treats like you used to, turning small informal businesses into structured enterprises." 6 months after the wedding, the Dorothy Jenkins Opportunity Program was officially launched. The name was a tribute to the woman who inspired it all, but also a symbol that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things when given the right chance. The program started modestly, serving 10 families in its first year. Mrs. Gladys was the first beneficiary, opening her flower shop on the ground floor of the company building. Others were also helped: a seamstress who expanded her atelier, a baker who opened a bakery, a hairdresser who set up her salon. Dorothy personally managed each case, applying the same attention to detail she had always shown in her organizational notes. She knew every beneficiary's story, tracked their business progress, and offered practical guidance for growth. Michael watched with growing admiration. His wife had become a true social entrepreneur, using her life experience to identify real needs and create effective solutions. "You realize," he said one day, "that we've created something much bigger than a microloan program." "How so?" "We've created an extended family. All these people we've helped have become part of our story. It's like we're planting seeds of dignity and harvesting trees of gratitude." Emily, now 18, had been accepted into a prestigious university's business administration program with a full scholarship funded by the company. She planned to follow in her mother's footsteps, working in social development and business management. During a family gathering, she made an observation that deeply moved Michael and Dorothy. "You know what impresses me most about this whole story?" she said, already showing the maturity of a young adult. "It all started with an honesty test, but turned into something much bigger. You proved that when good people come together, they multiply the good." Michael held Dorothy's hand, reflecting on his stepdaughter's words. "Emily is right. That day I pretended to be asleep changed all our lives. Not just because I discovered your honesty, Dorothy, but because I learned that trusting the right people can transform everything. And I learned that doing the right thing, even when no one's watching, always pays off in the end," Dorothy added. 3 years after the wedding, the Dorothy Jenkins program had helped over 50 families. The company had grown significantly, not just financially, but in reputation and employee satisfaction. The philosophy of valuing honesty and giving hard-working people opportunities had become the hallmark of Thompson Builders. Michael implemented an internal promotion system that prioritized character and dedication over degrees. Several employees who started in entry-level positions were promoted to leadership roles, creating a unique corporate culture in the industry. Dorothy, now with a completed degree in business administration, had become a respected executive in the field. She frequently spoke at business events, always emphasizing the importance of ethical values in business. One afternoon, 5 years after that first honesty test, Michael and Dorothy were in the office when she found an abandoned envelope on the table. Inside was a considerable amount of money and no identification. "Michael," she said, smiling, "look what I found." "What do we do?" "Well, considering our history, I think we know exactly what to do." They posted an announcement in local newspapers and on social media describing the found envelope and asking the owner to identify it with specific details. Within 2 days, a young sales employee showed up, desperate. "This money was for the down payment on my fiancé's apartment," he explained, tears in his eyes. "I was going to put it in the safe, but I left it on the table for a second to answer the phone and then completely forgot. I thought I'd lost everything." Michael and Dorothy exchanged knowing glances. They returned the money in full and even offered the young man a financial education program to help him better organize his savings. "You know what this reminds me of?" Dorothy said that night at home. "The first day you walked into my office and found the safe open." "Exactly. The difference is, now it's not a test anymore. It's just life happening, and us making the right choices, because that's who we are." Michael hugged her, feeling deep gratitude for the path their lives had taken. "Dorothy, can I make a confession?" "Always. That first day, when I pretended to be asleep, I wasn't just testing your honesty. Subconsciously, I was testing if genuine people still existed in the world. And what was your conclusion? Not only do they exist, but one of them became my wife and completely changed my perspective on life." End of story. Tell us what you thought of this story of perseverance and true love. Do you believe honesty always pays off? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.